guys, welcome back to Days of Darkness and welcome to my review for The Purge. This one came out in 2013 and is starring Ethan Hawke, Lena Headey, and Edwin Hodge, and was directed by James DeMonaco. So, first stop on the long winding road that is the Purge series. As I mentioned before, I've seen all of these movies pretty much exactly one time. If I rewatched any of them, I do not remember. So I am very unfamiliar with these movies, and that's going to present a fun challenge. It's always a different kind of review when you're viewing something with fresh eyes as opposed to something you're much more familiar with, at least in my case. But yeah, I have seen all these movies before, but it has been a long time. So I was curious to see what I thought of the first one, where we start this whole thing, this whole journey off. And I gotta say, man, I remember seeing this one for the first time. I had rented it from Family Video with my family. And, you know, I liked it. I wasn't blown away. It didn't really, it was very much a passive viewing experience. And while obviously I'm a little more in tune this time around since I'm reviewing it, my opinion of it really hasn't changed. It's not a bad movie by any means, at least in my opinion. I don't think this is a bad movie, but it's nothing I'm going to urge you, like, you have to see it. It's a fun, serviceable film. I think everybody, performance-wise, does a solid job. Some better than others, but I'll keep that to myself. But overall, man, I think this is a very entertaining movie. If you dig the concept, which I do, I definitely recommend you go out and see it. We'll see if I say so with the other movies, but for right now, we're in positive waters. But while we're on that topic, let's talk about the concept in general, since I'm not gonna run down what I think of the concept on every single movie, because it's all the same shit, at least, the concept in general. 12 hours, all crime is legal, you can murder, other gross stuff, steal shit, pretty much anything you can imagine, as long as you're not murdering I think it's political officials above a certain level, and as long as you're using weapons that are below a certain grade. But still, even with those restrictions, there's a lot of shit that can be done. And, what's the purpose for this? What is the reason? The whole idea is that it greatly reduces people's inner rage and their anger. We see people walking around today just boiling inside. And eventually they just snap. They just snap and they do something awful and terrible. And in this reality, they have found a way to circumnavigate that from happening, where they have this night. They had this night for people to just release all of their bullshit and do whatever they need to do and get it out of their system. And where we land story-wise in this movie, it's shown to have positive effects. The crime rate is at, I think it said 1%. Unemployment rate's the same. I think it's below 1%. And man, it's like, it's shown to do some real good. Now, obviously, it's addressed in this film as well as others within the series that, yes, this is, a benefit, but it's not the only reason why the Purge is in place. There's definitely a classism element as well going on here. Obviously, richer folks, more fortunate folks are able to barricade themselves fairly efficiently, and if they do decide to purge, they have much more resources available to them, while the less fortunate folks do not have nearly as much protection. And the idea is it's a way to kind of, dumb down the amount of poor people because they're, dead. So the rich people are able to make the country flourish more and more, and yada, yada, yada. So I love the idea. I think it's such a wacky, fun idea for a horror series, and it's just wacky enough to where it's believable, but certainly outrageous. I don't know in what world something like this would happen, but, you see where we are with reality and this timeline that we're in right now, and shit's kind of fucked up here too. So who's to say? I also like the fact that with this first film, we are in a much more isolated location, and this is a much smaller story in the grand scheme of the Purge and all the chaos that happens around the country. Some people don't like that element about this film. I remember people griping about it and saying like, "Oh, I want to see what's happening on the streets. I want to see what's happening, in other communities and other places." And it's like, patience, motherfucker. We'll get there. But for right now, I do really enjoy where we're at with this one, with telling that much more isolated story. And that story revolves around the Sandins. We have James, and I don't remember any of the other people's names. So, but we have James Sandin, who is a home security salesman, and he has just found out that he is the top selling salesman for security. And a big reason why he was able to get that achievement is because he sold it to all of his neighbors in his neighborhood. And obviously security systems are probably a big hot commodity in this world, where you have one night a year where people are just breaking into each other's homes and doing awful, horrible, terrible things to each other in the name of, a more peaceful country, ironically. But yeah, we see him interacting with his neighbors, and they discuss that quite a bit. And that obviously comes into play later on in the film, but we'll get there. But besides the aspect of him driving into through his neighborhood to get home, this entire movie is based within the Sandin home. We don't really get anything outside of it besides the opening credits, where I really liked how that was done. It looked very raw, very real, very gritty. Really good stuff there. But yeah, so James arrives home, and once he gets there, we are locked into that location. I really enjoy that choice. As I mentioned, I like the fact that this is a much more isolated story. Not only because it's effective, in my opinion, but I think it also builds a lot of intrigue, and it builds a lot of, just thoughts that people will have in their mind once this film is over. It's like, oh, well, all this fucked up shit happened to this one house. What's going on in other cities? What's going on, the ideas can be limitless. And as we see throughout the series, they made plenty of movies. So I definitely think it was the right choice to go with a much more isolated story. Some people don't like it. That's not my opinion, but anyway, so he gets home, and we see the preparations that this family goes through in order to, prepare for the Purge. And these people don't really feel the need to commit any crimes or do anything. This isn't an angry family. They're very well off, very wealthy, very stable. No enemies, nothing like that. So they're just, they're gonna hunker down and wait it out like they've, it's said that they've done every single year, and it's gonna be like any other year. And during the preparation period, it is interesting that we start to get little peeks of the moral dilemma that people have with the Purge. We have James, who is all for it, sees nothing wrong with it. It's in his mind, it's a necessary evil in order to live in the peaceful environment that they do. His son, however, does not quite feel the same way. He doesn't, and it's just since he's so young, he doesn't understand why people have to die. It's like, why do we need to go to such drastic lengths in order to achieve peace? And there's a lot of moral, conflict with something like this, but that does obviously play a huge role throughout the film, which we'll get into. But anyways, they hunker down and they gather in one of their rooms, and we get the scene that's in every single one of these movies where that very creepy automated emergency broadcast airs to every television within the country, basically, stating the rules of the Purge, what you can and can't do, mostly what you can do. And yeah, man, it's just a very effective scene, and I like that every single one of these movies take the time to build shit up, and then we get that moment where it's like, all right, shit's on, goddammit, let's go. And I love the fact that, after that we get that very ominous, like, that fucking tornado siren-esque. It's just creepy as all hell, and it really gets you in the mood to see some purging. And yeah, man, I just think it's a really, really cool touch that these movies have. And from there, man, it is all out fucking chaos in this house. Things start out solid enough, but the first kind of fucked up thing that we experience is the fact that James's teenage daughter, who has a boyfriend that is drastically older than her, maybe not drastically, but old enough to where, the dad's not cool with it. He's like, no, not cool for me. I think I saw somewhere that he's supposed to be 18 and she's like however old, which she does not look to be like a 15, 16-year-old. But if that is the case and she's supposed to be younger than 18 and this guy's 18, bud, come on, man. You're not a bad looking dude. You don't gotta be trying to diddle kids. But anyways, fuck it. The algorithms never liked me anyways. Moving on. But yeah, man, he ends up sneaking back into their house while they're eating so that, he could basically talk it out with Mr. Sandin and say, like, hey, man, that's what he says he's going to do is just, I just want to talk to him, just convince him that, I'm in love with you and yada, yada, yada. Obviously, that's not what ends up happening, and he has much more sinister plans in mind, which I don't know what the thinking is there. I mean, obviously, this guy's a fucking creep, so maybe he's not all there in the first place. But I'm like, man, I don't understand. So you're going to kill her father in their own home on Purge night. And then what? You're going to just ride off into the sunset? Are you going to kill the rest of her family? Is she supposed to be cool with this? Like, obviously his plan gets shut down very quickly, like we'll talk about, but man, not a solid plan at all. But then we get the son, obviously Mr. Sandin has his own security system that he sells armed on his home as well. So they are armed to the teeth, at least, protection-wise. He does have a couple firearms that we see. But it's mostly just armor around the house, armor on the windows, the doors, all that jazz. But his son sees a homeless man running through their street, begging for help. Like, he's clearly wounded, he's clearly hurt, and he's just begging somebody to help him. Please help me. They're going to kill me, which we do eventually meet the people who are trying to kill him. But for now, he's just running from them. He's terrified out of his mind. And the son sees this. I don't remember his name. We'll call him James Jr. So James Jr. sees this, and he's like, fuck, I gotta help this guy. So he unarms the house. He leaves them open for however many seconds to whatever the outside has to offer. Which, that is one thing that I heard a lot of people complaining about this movie is that, man, this kid, it's his fault. Everything that goes wrong in this movie to this family is this kid's fault. Which, I agree, it is his fucking fault. There's no debate about that. Because the people come later on, and we get that whole reverse hostage situation. And, if that kid just hadn't let him in, those guys would have come through, killed him, moved on. That would have been it. But, I get it, but people, look at this kid like a very unlikable character. And I don't think that. I think, alright, it's a fucking kid. He's just not thinking in the right frame of mind. Don't get me wrong, he makes some stupid fucking decisions in this movie. Just like, man, what are you doing? But, and I even found myself getting frustrated with that character a couple times. I'm like, dude, come the fuck on. Like, you gotta care about your family a little bit. Like, fuck. But at the same time, it's fucked up. It's fucked up to just leave somebody out there to just die and just not help them whatsoever. So I understand it. As frustrating as it may be, I do understand him letting that guy in. Obviously, Mr. Sandin is not cool with this whatsoever. Neither is Mrs. Sandin. And they end up, there's already some tension before the killer yuppies, as I will call them, arrive. But when they arrive, it's clear, hey man, we want this fucking guy back. And, I love the lead killer yuppie, played by Reese Wakefield. Phenomenal. I think he's so fucking scary. And it's like, there are moments with these antagonists where I feel like they're trying to play the creepy card a little too heavy. Where it's like, oh, okay, you have the two, girls in their dresses kind of skipping and being creepy and like swinging and just very stereotypical stuff. But, that's really the only thing I find wrong with them is I wish they would have portrayed those people to be a little more visceral, a little more violent, and not so like, creepy girls, la 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 la, and all that shit. It just doesn't really do anything for me. But beyond that, I do think it's effective, those creepy fucking masks that they wear and all that. It's cool. So they get there and they basically say like, hey man, and obviously Reese Wakefield does a much better job with this dialogue than I ever could, so I'm not even going to attempt it. But basically he says like, hey man, this home, and obviously these guys are very rich, yuppie, fucking snobby kids, they're all 20-somethings, just totally heads up their own asses, and so they view this homeless man as this just disgusting pig who's just a zit on their society, and he's just a pawn, he's just an animal, and we gotta kill him so we can purge out our our violent inhibitions. Did I say that right? Our violent instincts, or whatever they say, whatever bullshit excuse, because they're just all psychopaths, but. But yeah, man, basically, hey, give us this fucking homeless guy so we can kill him, or we're going to break in there and we're going to kill every single one of you, and him. So it's like, you have this moral dilemma now, and I like the fact that we see Ethan Hawke's character, James Sandin, now experiencing this dilemma of like, oh my god, like I support this, but it's passive support. He doesn't feel the need to kill himself, but he sees, like, kill other people, is what I meant by that. He doesn't feel the need to do it, but he says, oh, I support it, I'm all 100% for it. But now it's like, the consequences of this night are now staring you right in the face. Now it's no longer, oh, okay, I'll just kick back, not think about it for 12 hours, and then my life is all peace, happy dandy. Now it's like, okay, this guy, if I give this dude to these little rich fucking assholes, they're just going to slaughter him. They're just going to kill this human being, probably right on my front fucking lawn. And I'm going to have to live with that for the rest of my life. And if I don't do it, then they're just going to come in here, they're going to kill him, me, and my fucking kids and my wife. So it's like, what the fuck do you do? And for a good amount of the film, he is gung-ho about giving this guy to him, to the point where they have him tied up. And his wife's like, dude, we can't fucking do this. We can't do this. And, he's trying to just gut through it. And he's like, come on, we gotta do it. We gotta do it. And eventually, he sees this dude, and his family's all arguing and shit. Should we do it? Should we not do it? They all split up. And the homeless man just looks at him and he goes, save your kids, save your wife, and just get it over with. Just put me out there, get it over with. And that's kind of what leads him to be like, you know what? No, fuck this. We cannot do this. And he does end up, going babyface for a while there. I'm like, man, this guy's a fucking asshole. Like, this is the guy we're supposed to be rooting for. Like, this dude's a prick. But he does end up, turning over a new leaf. And they decide, man, they give these rich, yuppie, psychotic assholes, give them a certain amount of time. I love those little interactions, by the way, between Reese Wakefield's character and Ethan Hawke's character. Uh, those little moments where they talk to each other and they give them a time limit of like, hey, we got resources coming that are just going to barrel over this fucking skimpy little security system you have. So clock's ticking, motherfucker. And during that time, we get some interactions between them. And I like those moments because it really conveys just how fucking psychotic this guy is. You know, one of his buddies is losing his fucking mind at one point because he's impatient. He's like, just give us the homeless pig. And Reese Wakefield just looks at him and just shoots him right in the fucking head. Just shoots one of his friends, as he says later on, right in the fucking head. Because he just doesn't care, man. He's going to kill because he likes killing. That's it. And he's like, hey, man, just so you know, that was my friend that I just killed. So just imagine what I'm going to do to you, because you are not my friend. And then it's like, fuck. You know, really cool moments there. But once James does decide that him and his family are going to fight these fuckers, you know, the battle's on. And the last act of this movie really tells the stories of rich yuppie assholes versus the Sandin family and a homeless guy. So, really cool final act here. We get some really, really solid action stuff with Ethan Hawke's character. Just wasting some rich yuppie assholes. He puts up a very valiant effort. It is in vain, though. He does end up getting stabbed right in the stomach by the lead guy, lead Purger, whatever you want to call him. And he is then joined by his family as he's just bleeding out. And this lead yuppie fucking dickhead is just going through his villain monologue, only to get killed by the daughter. The daughter ends up coming back after sustaining some pretty serious injury to her head. But she does end up coming back and wasting that fucking dickhead. And they all gather around their dad and Mrs. Sandin's husband as he slowly bleeds out and dies. And it's like, that was a shocking choice. It's like, holy shit, you know, this is, I would argue, the biggest performer in this movie, Ethan Hawke, and they had the balls to kill him off. I was like, oh shit, all right, wow, that was surprising. But he does end up dying, and after that we see, you know, there are still more Purge yuppie motherfuckers outside. It's not like they're out of the woods yet, but their neighbors end up coming and seemingly helping them out, and they just waste these fucking kids, man. They're shooting them all in the head and just some really gnarly stuff. And they come in, and you would imagine, like, okay, you're here to help us. And they're like, no, we just wanted to kill you ourselves. And they get them all, like, in a pile, basically. And they're getting ready to fucking waste them. And we see Miss Grace, I think her name is, who is one of the neighbors that Lena Headey's character speaks to early in the film. You can see she's just a kind of a rich, snobby-ass lady, and she's very passive-aggressive. And basically the whole reason these people want to kill the Sandins is because, hey, you fucking, you know, you sold us this security equipment and made all of this money, and I think the Sandins made some big addition to their house because of those sales, as well as all the other sales that Mr. Sandin was able to get. And they're basically really fucking salty about it. And in their eyes, it's like, hey, you just made all this money off of us, and you just shoved it right in our fucking face. Very materialistic, shitty people. Like, that's the reason you want to murder these fucking people, is because they're successful. You guys got just as big of fucking houses as they do. What the fuck? But whatever. They end up getting ready to kill him. They have a knife, and her plan, because they just have one knife. No, wait, they all have knives. But what she says is, you know, they have these two kids and this mom. You know, Mr. Sandin's already dead. So she's like, all right, we're just going to take turns. And they're just going to take turns stabbing these fucking people to death. It's like, good God, man. It's like, that is one fucking part of this movie. Is like, is everyone just a psycho? Like, what the fuck? But yeah, man, and they're getting ready to do it. But Mr. Homeless Man, I think his credited name is Bloody Stranger. who's played by Edwin Hodge, by the way. Really, really good performance from him. He does end up coming and saving the day, and he blows one of those fuckers away, and the rest of them are essentially just held hostage until the night's over, and Edwin Hodge's character just kind of stands just looming over there with a gun, and Miss Sandin's like, all right, we're gonna fucking spend the rest of this night in peace. I'm not killing anybody else. And that is definitely big of her, because she certainly could have just told that dude to just blow those fuckers away. But she didn't, and she's like, no, you know what? I'm better than this. I'm not doing this. I think if it was those yuppie assholes that killed her husband, I think she might have had a different approach. But, you know, with these fuckers, she's like, you're not even worth it. We're going to live the rest of this night in peace, and then you're going to fucking never talk to me again. You fucking pieces of shit. And sure enough, man, they're there, and they're all just around that dinner table. The sun has risen, and we're right up until Purge night is over. And man, probably the most satisfying part of this movie, man, because the character was just so snobby and bitchy. Miss Grace makes one last attempt, and she's like, she tries to go for a gun, and Miss Sandin just fucking snatches it away from her, just caves in her fucking nose with the butt of this gun, and then just slams her head on the table and just shatters this bitch's face, man. Doesn't kill her, because like she said, I'm not killing anybody tonight. Fuck that shit. I said peace. We're having peace. Except for your shattered fucking nose. Because, man, she comes up, dude, and she's just fucking pouring blood. Great stuff. Very, very satisfying. Fuck Miss Grace. But yeah, man, and then sure enough, the Purge siren signaling the end of the Purge, rings out. And they're like, all right, that's it. Sandin is like, all right, get the fuck out of my house. And they all oblige. And that's that, man. The homeless man says, good luck. She's like, do you need anything? He's like, no. And he just goes. He's like, I'm done. Fuck it. And yeah, man, the movie, along with the actual Purge night, just sort of ends. And we get, these radio hosts and these news broadcasters saying how successful the Purge was and all this shit. And I just think it's a really fun, isolated way to introduce you to this concept. Because it was pretty clear with how successful this movie was, especially. It's like, they're going to make more for sure. They have to. And they did. And it's like a good, appetizer for all the chaos and shit that happens throughout these movies. And yeah, man, overall, I really like it. I definitely recommend you check it out. And that'll do it for the review portion of the video. But you know what we gotta do now, baby? We gotta get into the blood, the guts, and the gory bits. We gotta get into my kill of the film. Stick around. I think when people hear the concept for the Purge, a lot of them would tend to think about a lot of brutality, a lot of killing, and there is a lot of killing in this movie for sure. But it's a very mean-spirited idea, which with a seemingly positive consequence of having a peaceful year for the rest of the year. And surprisingly, what we get in this film, while it is very violent, there is plenty of violence throughout this movie. Not a lot of blood and guts, not a lot of graphic on-screen violence. I don't think the film necessarily needed it. I don't think it was necessary in order for me to enjoy the film. But it's definitely noticeable. The fact that, such a violent concept doesn't really lend a lot of violence, Mostly what we get here is just a lot of people being shot, which is like, the gorehound in me is always kind of like deflated when I see stuff like this and it's just people getting shot in the head. And, call me a sick freak if you want, but I like blood and guts. Sorry. But, I think it's not really the purpose of this film. I think this is much more of a suspense horror-esque movie. So yeah, man, it's mostly people getting shot. There's really not a whole lot to talk about in regards to, you know, inventive kills or anything like that. One of the rich yuppie fucking psychopaths gets an axe in the back, which is the only real unique kill I can really say. I'm just gonna give kill of the film to Reese Wakefield's character when he's speaking to James through that little slit in the door, and his buddy gets all pissed off and he says, "Just give us the homeless guy," and then just the shock of him just looking at him and then blowing his fucking head off. It's like, whoa, oh my god, this guy is unhinged as fuck. And that does a lot of good with, you know, just showing how demented that character is. And yeah, man, that's going to be my kill of the film. That's definitely a disappointing kill of the film section for sure. It is one of the weaker points, if you want to say that, but I don't think it really takes away from the film either. So that will do it for The Purge. Really looking forward to getting into the rest of these films and just what I think about them and just seeing how they hold up. Are some of them good, better than this one, or some of them drastically worse? You're going to have to stay tuned for that. We will be reviewing the rest of the Purge movies right here on Days of Darkness. But next time, obviously, you know I like to sprinkle a little bit in between each entry in the series. So next time on Days of Darkness, we're going to be getting into one of my personal favorites, Hereditary. All right, guys. Have a good rest of your day, and I will see you next time. And until then, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and for the love of all things gory, keep watching horror. All right, guys. Have a good day.